So the whole idea is better. How can you make these small incremental improvements and not let the idea of the perfect, ideal, dream, goal paralyze you or get in the way of actually taking a first step?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the simple and yet significant choices that we all can make in order to become the best version of ourselves. My name is Dr. Michael Brown. I am the host of 3 Words, and today I am with my very, very good friend, partner in DMB coaching. We have been together since the very beginning of this adventure that we are on. And so I am excited to introduce to you my dear friend behind the scenes mostly, but today in front of the camera, none other than Greg Jenkins. So Greg, share with us our 3 words for today.
Today we're going to talk about progress over perfection.
Now, Greg, these were 3 words that you were interested in, and they resonated deeply with me. Share with me why this concept of progress over perfection means so much to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, even being, like you said, behind the camera and running the sound on this podcast for a year and a half, listening to all these awesome episodes, people laying down challenge after challenge, things you could do differently, things you could do better. I'm absorbing this all as I'm editing, as I'm, helping behind the scenes. And the idea that it's not about perfect, it's about progress. So I remember one of our very first episodes with Tyler, wake up early, right? And he's talking about waking up at 4 a.m. or something. And it's like, can I do that if I'm used to sleeping until whatever time, 8, 9? And it's like, no, maybe 4:30, maybe 4:40, maybe 5:30. So the whole idea is better. How can you make these small incremental improvements and not let the idea of the perfect, ideal, dream, goal paralyze you or get in the way of actually taking a first step?
I like how you use the term paralysis, to be paralyzed. I'm actually working with student athletes at Bowling Green State University. And one theme that I've picked up as I've worked across the various sports is so many of our students are super perfectionists, which is great because I love the fact that they're aspiring to be perfect and to be amazing at their sport. And yet it has become paralyzing. And so we actually, with one of the sports teams, we actually have this little phrase that we use that perfectionism is poison. And so when they're on the court and they're feeling that perfectionism building up, like they've missed a shot or they've not grabbed the rebound, that they tell each other, even on the court, don't drink the poison. Right. Because perfectionism is poisonous because it leads to paralysis.
When you have to look at what it creates. So if you kind of take a step back and you say my desire, my drive for perfection, which as you mentioned is good, it's motivating, it's the fuel. But if you take a step back and you say that's actually causing problems, that's actually making me angry, disappointed, it's causing me to actually not make progress.
It's immobilizing. It actually causes us to do less in the long run. And because we just say, well, I can't do anything. Like, for instance, when you use Tyler's example of getting up at 4 or 4:30, you're like, well, I could never. And I hear this all the time when I give advice or I offer counsel to clients or friends, or even look in the mirror and tell myself, you can do this. Typically is we go, I could never do that. I'm going to do intermittent fasting. Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, I could never do that. Or I'm going to run a marathon. Oh, that sounds valiant. I could never do that. But what they're thinking is the end goal, as opposed to you could if you just run a little bit every day. And we were joking about this off camera, but there was actually a client of ours that when we were talking about fitness and doing workouts, this gentleman said to me, he says, well, I don't have time to work out. And my response was, do you have time tomorrow to do 1 push-up? And he kind of chuckled, right? And he laughed at me and he's like, well, yeah. I was like, tomorrow, that's all I want you to do. That's the first step of your fitness journey. Do 1 push-up. But here's the cool thing. The next day, do 2.
Right.
The next day, 3. And here's what happens. You get to a point where you're doing 100 push-ups a day. You got some serious biceps going on. And you're probably, and this is what happened, he's like, then I started walking. And then that walk turned to a run. But it all began with 1 push-up, which became 2 push-ups, which became 3 push-ups, which in your language, Greg, is progress over perfection.
Yeah, and it's not progress instead of perfection. You're not throwing the idea of perfection out the window. You're putting it in its proper place. So it is your perspective. It is your dream. It's what you're after. In other words, perfection asks, what is the destination? But having a progress mindset is asking, what's the first step? What's the next step? What can I do now? Your fitness example reminded me of something from my life last year. I was training to run a 50K ultra marathon.
Oh my goodness.
About 30 miles.
Okay.
And so, I started with a couple miles, and throughout the summer, eventually I'm out, hey, I'm going to go on a run. When are you going to be back? 3 hours, I guess. I'm running 15 miles, 16 miles. Wow. The race got canceled because of COVID, and it ended up kind of fizzling out a little bit. The interesting thing is that when I reflect on that, my tendency is to say, well, I didn't do the 50K. I didn't do the goal. I was running 17 miles. And what was I doing the summer before? Nothing. But as humans, our tendency is to look at the thing that we didn't quite accomplish and ignore and forget to celebrate your friend who was meant to do 100 push-ups. Maybe he got to day 40 and stopped. I'm making that up, but
sure,
that's 40 more than he would have done, right? And so if perfection is paralyzing, we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? Is it helpful? Or should we shift that lens, shift that focus, and think about what's my next step? What's a doable, accomplishable goal?
Well, we talk a lot about the essentials of success here in D&B coaching, the first of which is perspective. And whenever I talk about perspective, I talk about we all need in every area of our lives or every business or every venture that we're on, we all need to have the North Star. And on a clear night, even here in Ohio, we can see the North Star. And it's mostly cloudy here in Ohio, Northwest Ohio. But on occasion, we do get to see the North Star. We're never going to touch the North Star. We're never going to reach the North Star, but we can see it and it becomes a trajectory. So that's the perfection, right? That's the destination. But without that North Star, it's hard to make those daily decisions. It's hard to make those great choices. But progress, like you said, is enough. And so you use the term destination. So what immediately I jump to is thinking, yes, I want to make daily decisions in light of the ultimate destination. Right. That's what comes into my mind as you talk about that, Greg, because I can't control if I'm going to get to the destination or when I'm going to get to the destination, but I can decide today what is a choice I can make? What is a decision that I can make? Because I think you and I would agree. We are simply the accumulation of our decisions. We will be far closer to our destination if we make real decisions and activate choices than if we just have great intentions.
Right.
And what happens is our intentions tend to be paralyzed because we're like, I can't get there. It's too big. It's too much. And so one of the phrases we use in D&B coaching is this notion that don't think so much about changing. Think about choosing, right? And you'll choose your way into change. So in the same way, you will decide your way to your destination and your progress. You're never going to hit perfection. I'm not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect, but we're sure going to be a lot closer if we embrace the journey.
And I love what you're saying about taking a next step and progress, because to me, one thing that I've had to reflect on with myself is, are my goals doable? In other words, if I have a goal written down somewhere, I want to get to this weight in a fitness sense, or I want to do this thing financially. If it's not something I can stand up and go do right now, it's not a very good goal. It's a dream. It's a milestone. It's something to look forward to, but I need a better goal. I need something that I can go do, get in the car, drive somewhere. So I need actionable goals that I can do right now. And if I don't have those, I have a collection of interesting dreams, and those aren't really going to do anything or create motion.
Well, you were talking about even when we were creating this podcast, you were creating the logo for the podcast and you sent it out to me. I thought that was a funny story. Can you share that?
Yeah. So, the idea, being a creative person, graphic designer, a lot of times, the progress over perfection, I think, has a unique angle when you're talking with a creative person, because a lot of times someone that has good taste, that likes art, that likes music, poetry, writing, they admire a certain artist or an author and they want to replicate that and they want to do that. But they also have the intuition that first thing they made really wasn't very good. And that's a pivotal moment, because you can either stop there and say, well, I tried and it didn't really work out, or you can begin to iterate. and create more and create more. No author, no songwriter did the best work right away. So all that to say, you know, with our logo for the podcast, I remember throwing something together quickly and sending it to you.
And I loved it.
Yeah. The next minute you'd post it on Instagram, say, hey, we have a podcast now. We didn't. We had a logo. And I remember thinking to myself, but it wasn't done. It wasn't perfect. And your words struck me, and I remember them to this day, which was, oh, if we make it better, I'll just send it out again. And it is kind of that freedom of not many things in life are permanent, and go ahead and give it a shot. And if you want to come back tomorrow or next week and do it better, then do it better, because better is better is better. And, you know, being able to iterate, being able to cycle back through, make something better, make small improvements. That's kind of what it's all about. But if we got to wait until it's perfect, then you might be waiting forever.
So what I'm hearing you say, Greg, is we should never postpone progress because we feel paralyzed by perfection. And so what's happening typically is that we feel like we're not going to be perfect, so I'll wait.
Well, the funniest thing about that is we didn't use that logo. We came back and we said, you know, it's actually kind of similar to this other logo. We don't really like the way the colors are working. We changed it. We sent it out. No one ever really cared or knew. And so all of my fears about it being perfect were kind of silly in the end.
But what it accomplished is it accelerated our vision. It accelerated, most likely the podcast happened earlier, quicker, because we kind of jump-started it.
It's what's the next step versus what's the perfect final product.
What is the next step versus what is the perfect product? So what I'm hearing you say is you want the perfect product. You want to have this amazing thing, and maybe you'll get to this place where you're like, this is absolutely amazing. But even if you do, say you get to the place where you're like, this is the best thing I've ever done. Chances are, if you keep going, 6 months from now, you'll look back and go, that wasn't the best thing I've ever done. You're actually writing songs right now.
Yeah. So, you know, I was talking about the creative process and how this kind of idea of perfection over progress, I think, affects people that have a creative bent in a unique way. And one of the ways, you know, I think about my own life, music is one of the most important things to me. I love to play the piano. I love to sing. And do I have this big volume of songs I've written and recorded to show for that? No. And the reason is I'm too precious about it. I'm too perfect about it. I might write a little something and I think, it's not quite there yet. So I have a goal this year. And speaking of kind of breaking off your big vision into doable goals, I'm going to write a song every week. Now here's the stipulation. It doesn't have to be good. I'm going to write maybe a bad song every week. And what I care about is that it's finished and that it's recorded. It's not recorded perfectly, but it's done. It's written. And, you know, put a bow on it and move on to the next one. So the idea would be at the end of the year, I have 52 songs. And the kind of the motivating factor or the linchpin in all of it is that the 43rd one is probably going to be better than the 19th one, which is going to be better than the first one. And so it's all about creating, you know, kind of giving yourself a deadline and a small goal and saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it over and over. I'm going to get a little better each time, but I'm not just going to sit back and record that perfect song, because in the 20 years that I've been playing music, that hasn't happened. And there's a reason for that. I'm waiting for perfect.
Well, and who knows, after doing 52 songs this year, you may look back and you may start reviewing them and thinking about them, and out comes from that a vision of what would be an amazing song that maybe was a mixture of this song and this song and this song and this chord. And I'm not a musician, so I'm using language I don't know what I'm talking about. But there's this notion of we want to be best, but better is enough. So I guess I want to say this to our audience, those who are listening even today or watching us on our YouTube channel. Don't wait. Don't pause so long because you feel paralysis or paralyzed by this dream to be perfect. None of us will ever achieve perfection. Progress is enough. Better is the pathway to the best. The next choice is the most important thing. Start making decisions today in light of the destination, and make sure, above all else, you value progress over perfection. For life coaching, consulting services, or to hire a keynote speaker, please visit dmbcoaching.com.